We did not expect the surge. I don't think anyone expected a 30-foot surge.
I can remember Anita and I sitting down and just having a moment together and really realizing that everything was about to change.
It's hard to believe, it's hard to remember.
We knew it was going to be a big storm. We'd been watching it all week. Got a call from Stan saying we were going to have a newsroom meeting that afternoon and everybody needed to be there, that the storm was a big deal.
Stan Tyner decided he was going to send a skeleton crew to Columbus, Georgia, just in case we had to print over there. He didn't think we really would. He's fully expected that we'd be printing in Gulfport. So we drove across Alabama in the rain at night with half the state of Louisiana was leaving with us.
If you leave the coast, you can't get back to report once the hurricane has hit and knocked trees and power lines down. So it was essential to have people here. So I spent the night in the newsroom with 3 other reporters. Just that sound of the wind, it's pretty much indescribable, but it's continuous. It doesn't stop. And one of the reporters was a little afraid. He said he put his hand on the wall and the wall was shaking, and I told him not to put his hand on the wall anymore.
Over the scanner, you know, once the storm came ashore, and you heard about people that were trapped in their attics. You heard people needed help.
We had a photographer here from Tallahassee. He was freelancing for Reuters, and he was from Florida. He had freelanced many storms. His name was Mark Wallhauser. And Mark insisted on leaving the building while the hurricane winds were still going. And I didn't want him to do that, but he did, and he came back, about 10 minutes later, and he looked at me and he said, "Your city is gone."
We were following Don Hammock's blog. He was blogging from the emergency center in Gulfport, and he was doing a great job. So we were compiling that sort of just in case, you know. We know we got this much, and we were not able to get a hold of anyone in the newsroom. There was just no phone service. And as the storm, I guess, passed through, we started being able to occasionally reach people. We got a photo in. I don't even remember how that happened, but that was the photo of the McDonald's, and you know, it starts setting in early that the coast is never going to be like the coast that you knew, you know.
I just wanted to get everything I heard, you know, put up there, because we were kind of the newspaper and Knight Ridder, the newspaper chain, were kind of rallying the troops, and more people were coming, but the communications were so bad, we didn't know what was getting out. You know, I never thought that I was the only person getting stuff out, but now when you think about it, we were using satellite phones and stuff like that to get, you know, just the stories and the photos out, and the sheer volume of communication problems we have that, you know, I just didn't think about it. That was kind of my job, so I just kept doing it.
Mark needed photos for the front page before the light died. He and I jumped in his SUV, and knowing a route that I had taken in past storms, we took that route. And it happened that our house was in that neighborhood, and we walked down there and it was pretty much shot. It was a very odd feeling because I had my notebook and I was prepared to go in and interview residents who had had damage. And first I had to see that I was one of those people. And it was very difficult.
The whole scenario was surreal. It was very surreal. It's, you know, you walk out, and in your mind, you can see all these buildings that were there, all these homes that were there. because you've lived here so long, and they're gone. And you know, not only that, there are people who have died in the storm, which is just tragic. But you had a job to do, so you had to get up and you had to go out and you had to try and tell the story so that people knew what had happened and knew where to go to get for resources, where to go for help.
It's not like we chose to do this or have it thrust on us or whatever. I always say, you know, doing that was something I'll always be proud of, but I wish we'd never had to do it just because all the, you know, the bad stories that we had to tell and, you know, all the pain and suffering that went along with it. But I think it's just the nature of newspapers and the people who work in newspapers is, you know, people want to tell stories.
I think that it was a Herculean effort for a newspaper that is considered a small daily in terms of the industry, and we came in and we hit it out of the park.
I think one of the aspects of it that we take some pride in is that we never missed a day of publication. We had sent a team of reporters and editors up to our sister paper. We had one satellite phone to transmit pictures and text to Georgia, and they put together an 8-page paper the first day that had the headline, "Our Tsunami," which was a quote from Biloxi Mayor A.J. Holloway. The papers were printed the next morning in Georgia and trucked down, and on the 30th of August, a newspaper was put in the hands of people across the coast.
The main source of distribution for newspapers was the reporters and photographers would go out and we would throw a couple of bundles into our trunk, and wherever we would go, we would just hand out newspapers. And one time I remember pulling up to a parking lot with, there was a long line of people who were waiting for ice and water, and people were leaving the line, leaving that line that they had been standing in for hours to come get a newspaper from us. And, you know, it just really made you realize how important what we were doing was.
People were so happy to get those papers that just made it all worthwhile.
As a photojournalist, it was, you know, without a doubt the biggest story I hope I will ever have to cover. And you know, I think there's a certain amount of pride there, but there's a lot of memories. I mean, I can look at a photograph and go, "Oh, I remember that day." You see the eyes of the people that you photographed, and you remember them. That, you know, it was tough. You know, sometimes, you know, we hide behind the camera, but there was a lot of times you just put the camera down and you stopped working and, you know, gave somebody a hug or cried with them or whatever.
It was really the connection to the community and the knowledge of the community and being a part of it, I think that that made this really belong to the bigger community and the region and the people.
To this day, I drive home, and when I turn onto my street, I can see my neighbor's home, I can see all of my neighbor's home, and I can see mine. They're not there, but they're still there in my head. And I think, you know, probably for a lot of people, that they can still see those images of what was there, what life was before this, before Katrina. I'm not sure those images will ever go away. I'm not sure they will.